Alright, welcome back. So, Thoth or Toth, whatever you want to call him, for the sake of this video, I'm just going to call him Thoth. He's been out for a few days now, and I decided to go ahead and do a Season 3 build video for him. It's also been requested by maybe one or two people, so I figured I should just go ahead and get this build video out there. For those of you that are probably either new to Smite, or new to mages, or just new to the god himself. So first I want to go over a build for him in Conquest. Now in Conquest, there's a few different stars that you can go into that is kind of specific to Conquest that you wouldn't really apply to other game modes. For example, mostly Conquest you would go into a starter item. Other game modes, maybe not all that much, but for the sake of Conquest, there are a couple different starter items that you can go into. If you want to do overall more damage, you can go into Soulstone, which is it's really popular right now for melee mages, kind of over the Vampiric Shroud. Over the course of, I feel, Season 3, Vamp Shroud has slowly just kind of left the meta, and then in came the new and improved Soulstone. The difference is, basically, Soulstone will provide you with overall more damage and power, and Vamp Shroud is more of the just sustaining off the passive itself, so that you can kind of stay in the lane a little bit longer and kind of be there for the mid-harpy rotations, or just overall just stay in the lane longer than your opponent would. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and go into Soulstone. Now, after you pick up Soulstone, it only costs 800 gold, and you start with, what, 1500? So you're left with quite a bit of gold left over, and you have a few different options that you can do with that gold. So for one, you could go under penetration and pick up the tier 1 item called Imperial Helmet. It only costs 600 gold. And the reason why you might buy this item early on is so you can actually build it towards a very cheap and efficient item called a Dynasty Plate Helmet. Now in the order, you can go, from Imperial Helmet, farm up some gold, go back and build this right away if you want to. Or you can go back and go into the boots of, whatever one you want to go into, the Shoes of Focus or pin boots. Let's just say Shoes of Focus for now. And then you can go back and finish this into the Dynasty Plate Helmet. As you can see, it's a very cheap and efficient item for what it does. It's seen as a really strong early game item. And then once you get towards the later stages of the game, particularly when you have most of your items finished, you have like 5 or 6 items in total, you can go back and sell this for something else. So what this Dynasty Plate Helmet will help you do, have a little bit of magical power, you have a decent amount of physical protection. So if the enemy jungler is physical and they're really aggressive on you, they're ganking you a lot, this will kind of ensure you that you won't take as much damage. It can also be super helpful if you're also fighting a physical meleeaner, like let's say a Neath or something, and the enemy jungler is also physical, then you could definitely look for something like this. Now, another strong combination with the Dynasty Plate Helmet for the early game is actually going into the penetration boots. Yes, Thoth, he does have built-in penetration on his passive. You kind of build up these stacks and then you can get passive penetration that way. But what's cool is with the Shoes of Magi that provide you with 10 magical penetration, and then Dynasty Plate Helmet that provides you with 15 flat, in total you're going to have 25 flat magical penetration in the early game, and that is where it's at its strongest. This next route is a little bit more if you want some more cooldown reduction. So instead of going to the tier 1 item called Imperial Helmet, you'd be going into the tier 1 item called Lost Artifact. Again, 600 gold. So what this will allow you to do is have a little bit more MP5 mana per 5 seconds for the little sustain that it will give you, and you can later build this into either Doom Orb if you really want to kind of snowball your magical power by a lot. Or if you want, you can go ahead and go into your boots of choice, like let's say the Shoes of Focus, and go back and build this into the Cronus Pendant. This way, with your first 2 items, you have 30% total cooldown reduction, and the cap is 40%. So within 2 items, you have a lot of cooldown reduction. Again, you're not going to have much of that penetration from your items. You're just going to have to rely on your passive for your penetration until later down the road, where you can go into something like Obsidian Shard for your magical penetration. Now, personally for me, this is something that I do for my Thoth's build across all game modes. I try to get cooldown reduction. The main reason why is, as of this recording, this is Thoth when he just came out this week. There's no balance changes with him, so his cooldown on his only escape is 18 seconds without cooldown reduction. Let's go ahead and sell these so you can see it. 18-second cooldown on his only escape, and he is not CC immune at all during any phases, through the game or his abilities or whatever. So it seems a little lengthy for me personally, so that's why I like to get cooldown reduction for him. Now, of course, this might change in the future. They might kind of rebalance his scalings, or his cooldowns on his 2 and etc. But for now, I really enjoy cooldown reduction on Thoth for myself. Now let's go back to building real quickly here. Now if you don't want to go into either of those two starts, if you want, you can just go starter item, go straight into your boots. If you wanted to go to Dynasty Plate Helmet, you can still go it, after boots. If you still want that Chronos Pin, you can still go it after boots. You can probably even go the dual mode right after boots, just like this. The order is just kind of up to you on how you want to do that. But for me, real quickly, this is the kind of build that I would run for Conquest and the way it might look like. I go into the Soulstone, go into the Lost Artifact, go into the Chronos Pendant, go into the cooldown reduction boots. Now for the item slot right after these boots here, or just in general for this 4th item slot, regardless of these first 2 items after your starter item, right here, this is a perfect time to go into a stack item if you so wish. So if you want to go into a Book of Thoth for a lot of power and a lot of mana, it's a perfect opportunity to go into that there. Or if you prefer Warlock Sash, you can go into that as well. Or if you don't want to go into either of those, another good option is to go into Gem of Isolation. Now I know he does have a slow on his 2, but it's tied to his dash ability. So if you want to, save your 2 to kind of escape, you can't really use that slow all that often. Or, unless if you're in that position where you're fed, you have some early kills, and you have that lead to allow you to use your dash a little bit more aggressively to apply that slow, then maybe you don't want to go to Gem of Iso. But with Thoth's 1, his first ability, it's split between 3 different abilities, so that way you can actually kind of refresh the 2-second timer on the Gem of Isolation and just easily apply the Gem of Iso debuff on your targets. So for now, just for the sake of just continuing with this build, I'm just going to go ahead and go into Gem of Isolation. Now, regardless of what item you went into this 4th item slot, whether it's, Book of Thoth or the Warlock Sash or Gem of Isolation, or maybe even Bancroft's Talon is a very cheap item for a lot of power. You can also go into that here if you really want to. The next item slot right here, you definitely want to have some penetration. I don't really believe even if you had all stacks on his passive, which gives you a grand total of 20 flat penetration, I don't think that's all that enough to kind of carry you throughout the late game, where targets are going to be naturally tankier if they're on a god that their magical protection scales or they have magical protection items. Now, regardless of what you went into this 4th item slot, like Gem of Isolation, Book of Thoth, Warlock Sash, or even a Bancroft's Talon for the cheap and high magical power that this item offers, your next item, you definitely want to have some type of penetration in your build. I don't feel like, even if you got all the stacks on this guy's passive, I don't feel like that flat 20 magical pen is enough to carry you into the late game. I would still go ahead and get a penetration item. Now for me, for my penetration item, I would definitely go into the Obsidian Shard. It's really cheap, a lot of power, and that passive is really, really strong against pretty much anybody, and specifically against structures and objectives where that plus 33% magical penetration does a lot of work. Now, could you go into some of these other penetration items like Spear of the Magus? Yes, you could. The way Thoth's 1 works, you could apply the stacks on Spear of the Magus somewhat easily if you want to. Spear of Desolation, it's a very, very expensive item. The only time that I would consider buying this if you have a really strong lead, so you have a lot of gold just coming in, you're basically fed and you can easily afford this, then sure, go ahead. Or I would actually go into this once I have the entire build done and get it as like my 6th item or my 5th item or whatever, or sell a previous item for this and just kind of have that as a replacement. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and go into the Obsidian Shard. Now from here, the match, depending on the length, more than likely it's probably going to be wrapping up to an end. You definitely want to kind of get this nice spike and magical power, and for that, definitely go ahead and go into the Rod Tahuti. As you see, I only have 295 magical power on the bottom left here. Go ahead and buy this. Boom, 525 ready to really chunking people with his ultimate. Now, of course, with the starter item, you definitely want to sell this whenever you feel like it's not making an impact, so you can sell this to help finish off a tier 3 item. Or if you get to the point like now, you definitely want to sell this. Do not keep your starter item for the entire game. So go ahead and sell that, and you can go ahead and go back and buy whatever you want. For the case of Thoth, maybe you want Polynomicon, so you can follow up with your 2 into a Polynomicon hit, or you want into a poly hit, you can go into something like that. Or if you want to spike up your burst damage life just a little bit, you can also go into Soul Reaver to help you out with that burst damage. Or something that I sometimes like to do, not necessarily for Conquest, but for like other game modes like Arena or other casual game modes. Even if you have no stacks on Book of Thoth, as long as you have like a couple items that have mana, but most importantly, as long as you're level 20, because some people should know this, as you level up, your mana and health goes up. So I can see I have a flat 500 magical power. I have how many mana items? I have a couple mana items here with these 2 here. Go ahead and buy Book of Thoth, And I'm almost at 700 magical power with 0 stacks on Book of Thoth, because the way the passive works, it's just based off of mana. So you have a couple mana items, you're level 20, you can go ahead and buy this with no stacks, and it's just an instant just burst of magical power just for you. Now quickly, I want to back all this up and just kind of show you how it looks like for a casual game mode, because I know, not everybody plays Conquest. I don't even actually play a lot of Conquest. So for just a normal build, like let's say for arena or whatever, what would I personally go into? I would definitely go into cooldown reduction, like I said earlier. It's basically the same items as Conquest, just in a different order. So for me, my personal build for casual game modes would look just exactly like this. Go ahead and go to Rod Tahuti. Majority of the time I don't actually get to finish a 6th item, so that's why I get Rod Tahuti 5th. So I would just go into, again, Poly, Bancross, Book of Thoth, Slow Reaver, whatever I need. Now before I forget, there are a few different items that you could go into that I haven't talked about in the case of you need some defensive items, like let's say you're being focused a lot by physical gods. Again, you could go into the Dynasty Plate Helmet for the early game, or you can also go into your Breastplate of Valor. This item will last you throughout the the entire course of the game. Just be wary of the 20% cooldown reduction. So if you have the type of build I have now where I already have 30%, you're going to be missing out on 10% because you'd be overcapping by 10%. But you could go into a Breastplate of Valor as your defensive option. Some people like to do this. So let's say, instead of Gem of Isolation, we had like, Pin Boots, and we only had 20% CDR just from the Chronos Pendant. But let's say you went to your Breastplate of Valor and you finished your entire build and the game is still going on. Something that you could do here that's a little neat trick is you can actually go back and sell Breastplate of Valor, and you can replace it with Mantle Discord. Now you do lose 15 physical protection from the transition from Breastplate to Mantle. And you also lose 5% cooldown reduction, but what you get from those couple losses there, you also get 60 magical protection. You also do lose the mana, so if you do have Book of Thoth, you're going to be losing a little bit of power from not having the mana on Mantle, but instead you have magical protection and you have a passive that could potentially just really save you. Now a couple other defensive items that you could look to, you can also look towards a Winged Blade. So let's say you didn't go Gem of Isolation, and for that item slot you went into a Winged Blade. You could do something like this. You still get the HP that Gem of Isolation provides you, but you have all these nice utility stats to help you out, because you're being aggressed on by a gods or an entire team comp even that applies a lot of slows. Just basically you pick this up when gods are giving you issues, and that issues are just slows. And this also provides you movement speed. Attack speed is not really all that useful, but movement speed, you can never go wrong with that. And the CCR can definitely help you out. And for the last defensive item that you could go into is the Magus Blessing. Again, this guy, he doesn't have CC immunity anywhere in his kit. They could add that later on for his ulti, do not know. But in the case where you need to be CC immune or just have that nice Magi's passive, then you can definitely go ahead and pick this up, in the item slot of Winged Blade. So that way, if you're fighting into Ares or whatever the case may be, you don't have to, waste a purification, or if your purification is on a cooldown, you can hopefully get saved by Magus Blessing. And finally, for the relics, you can go into Purification, Sanctuary. Those are the 2 top relics that I personally get. Sanctuary, maybe instead of Sanctuary, you might, want to get into Sprint or Meditation for like game modes like Assault, or you can spice your life up with Sunder. Don't forget about Phantom to help counter against gods that place down structures, most notably Odin, but majority of the time your support or some type of frontliner will get the Phantom for you. But yeah, Purification, Sanctuary, those are the big ones right there. And yeah, that's going to go ahead and, oh look at this bubble, and that's going to go ahead and end it for this video. Might have been a little bit longer than normal, but I just want to provide you guys with some helpful information for those of you that are new to Smite or new to Mages or whatever. Obviously, if you're experienced with Smite, you probably already know all these things, but again, it's just for the new players that are just looking for a little bit of help. So hopefully it was helpful, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.